Hello and welcome to our podcast. We are the ATLA, and I'm here with Ali Tarani, Tyler King, Adrena Miles, and myself, Lance Cohen. Today we'll be talking about censorship in the US, along with its comparison to censorship in Iran, and after that, our prediction of where the US could be heading in the future regarding censorship. So starting with that, Ali, do you want to give us a kind of overview?
Sure. So, in recent years, America has seen increased efforts to censor speech and content, especially in education and online platforms. We can see current censorship in uh, social media and in book bans in schools. In June, a fifth grade teacher was fired just because of reading a best selling book to her students, which they chose the book. The book name is My Shadow is Purple. And the Cobb County School District said that she violated a trio of state censorship law, which was passed in 2022. Isn't that crazy, guys?
Yes.
That's because of reading a book to the class. According to Jonathan Friedman in PEN America in 2023, over 1,500 book titles were banned in the US. So,
Yeah, no,
what do you guys think?
I've seen the same thing with a lot of books like regarding like a lot of like considered now like woke or sensitive topics. A lot of them being like interacting with people's gender or their sexuality. A lot of states I've seen like Texas and Florida or like red states like that. There's been a lot of bans
Yeah.
on stuff like that where they just want to completely get rid of something. Um, and I've also seen like just major bans on people using kind of like a freedom of speech to like tell their story. Like a lot of books about like Black Americans saying like what they had to go through when they were younger, or like Mexican Americans talking about like what they had to go through, what they experienced. Like a lot of those are being like banned and seen as like, oh, we shouldn't be showing these to our children, which just it's crazy to me because like the U.S. has always been like this beacon of uncensored
Yeah.
where you can say anything you want, you write anything you want, even if it's the worst thing possible. Yeah. Everyone was always like, well, even though it's that bad, it's the freedom of speech. Yeah. If you start taking away one thing, you can start taking away everything. And it's kind of like weird because we've started taking away things. So, like, what's stopping us from taking away more?
I think that that's what's happening is it's like slowly ramping up, and it's starting with like education, especially in younger children, just for the idea of like protecting the child from these ideas. And but most of these ideas we're seeing is the idea to speak out against a government that isn't treating you well, like in the Hunger Games and all these books that kind of are teaching you that you have a voice and that you can say something when something is wrong, and you shouldn't just go along with what everyone else is doing if it's not the right thing. And a lot of those books are just going away.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also like it's happened before back in 2021 in Florida, the book Brave New World, it actually got banned from libraries and classrooms and just cut from their curriculums, which is weird. Like what you're talking about, it's like focus on like this like overpowering government and like these just people living in like these strict societies, which is crazy to me. Like, why wouldn't you want to teach that to these kids? You know, like I even read it. I wasn't that big of a fan of the book, but I think it's still important to highlight these stories. You know.
Yeah. I was a really big fan of the book. I liked it a lot. I also heard a lot of bad things about it. There are some scenes within the book which are seen as more graphic
Yeah.
by sexual memes or things like that. But the book as a whole was like a warning of what
For sure.
the future could turn into.
And it was made in like the 19, I could be wrong, but 1920s or 1910s.
Yeah, it was made like really early. It was like it was seen as like ahead of its time, whatever that would mean.
Yeah.
But it was just like as a warning to like future technology, to future consumerism, to future powers to oppression of people. And it was just this huge warning to people like, hey, this is where things could be going. We don't really want things to go this way. This is all bad stuff. And for them to like just ban something like that, that served as like a warning. It's almost just it's just weird.
Yeah, and there's another book. It was like Animal Farm. It's kind of like the same
Mm.
story as well. People are like seeing comparisons to like Animal Farm and Trump. I forget the main character's name, but it was one of the pigs. I think he's one of the main leaders on the farm itself, and just how like so much power someone can have and how destructive it can actually be. Sure.
I think it's
Interesting.
I think it's great. 'Cause that book was
That
like
book was really good, though.
yeah.
I
I
would
have
recommend everyone to read that book.
I haven't read it. My brother's read it and he talks about it. It's really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was literally just like another book of critique, you know, on like on power and stuff. Same as how you mentioned with Hunger Games. Hunger Games was a critique on
Yes.
too much power and like revolution, and they just we don't really want that.
Yeah,
You know?
they're
It's
kind of
just
like
Let's
erasing it
not.
from like library. It's not even like schools itself, like libraries. Like, why wouldn't
yeah,
you want that to be put in like
yeah, just a
the
like a
library?
public space. Like it's crazy.
It's just trying to erase it, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
think
think they're trying to do that with just like education
yeah.
itself. Like, they're you've like mentioned
Yeah,
like erasing
with
history.
education and like history, especially with like Trump's um, recent activities with like DEI and his whole like campaign of whatever that is, whatever he has to say on that. He's gone through this whole thing of like trying to erase parts of history through different excuses almost. That's just what they seem as. Like the Kigi Airmen, which was the first all black, maybe the first like black air group entirely in the U.S. Air Force during World War II. They played a very important role, like protecting bombers that flew over Europe, and they protected them using fighters. And they played a very prominent role in defeating Nazis. You know, it's a very something you would want to remember,
Yeah.
something you would be proud of history as this change in history and everything. And instead, he wanted to get rid of it, which is just crazy to like want to erase a part of history like that.
That's a
Yeah.
big part of history.
Yeah,
But
it's just like crazy. You don't know what could happen next. To
yeah,
be honest.
it's just it's like whatever they can get at, they're trying to erase. Like especially like I've seen a lot of words being removed in the government and stuff.
In my ceramics class, we always open with like inspiration, which is a current event, and then like this, I remember it, like he showed us this like big list, like over 1,000 words of these just words being banned. They can't be used in federal papers or just not federal papers, federal like government pages, and then just like federal conversations, which is weird. Some of these words are like racism,
Yeah,
and they focus on like women, and just like you can use these words in like different contexts. It's just like weird for them to
yeah,
ban.
it's weird. Like just like it like I've seen the same thing, and it's just like getting rid of like normally used words like women or
Pregnant female.
yeah. Like
It's
any,
crazy.
it's like any word that has almost like any relation to some type of controversial topic
Yeah.
between you know like Republicans and Democrats or anything like that. Any word like whether it's women or whether it's gender or whether it's racism
Oh, I think
or
like
homosexuality.
climate change. I think pollution was
Yeah,
one of them on that list
like
too.
I think that was all on the agenda to erase like woke ideology from the government, and
Yeah.
so they're like, we're gonna just find this list of all these woke words that is being used in media and by Democrats. We're just gonna get rid of them because that will fix it.
yeah, it's just it's I don't get it. Like it's just
Like
it's,
the list goes on. Like
yeah, no,
it was
it's a lot of
insane.
words.
It's just gonna make it so much harder for the government to run itself. I think
Yeah.
to have to have a
Just kind of like
list.
tiptoe around.
It's
You know,
so
like
And imagine being the person in the government who has to go through all these documents and
yeah.
scrub all these words out. It's a terrible use of time.
For sure.
But I think it was crazy. Like what's like I just in government like documents and stuff. I'm pretty sure because like there's a bunch of like government websites you can find. You know, like you can go and you can find like the Constitution, and it's just like or like other government websites, and they're all just like laid out. And for they took, I'm pretty sure it was the U.S. Constitution in like Spanish or something, and they completely just took it down.
Another thing that they took down, I remember talking about this in my English class actually, is there was a page that would talk about like LGBTQ rights and people, and they put a disclaimer above it saying that they don't believe in any of this and that it's not real.
Yeah.
So at first, I think they actually took the page down, but then due to the backlash, they put it back up. But then they put that disclaimer on it, and it was interesting because in our English class we were working on a lot of like Native American studies, and there was the idea of or not the idea, but there was two-spirited people on there, and that's a real thing. There in Native American communities, there's the two-spirited people, which are people who feel like both genders. And the fact that there's a disclaimer saying this isn't real,
Yeah.
well, that is just also just completely unfactual, and everything about it is just completely unfactual.
Yeah.
And moving into it, they're banning so much LGBTQ education and sex education, and it's leaving so many people in the dark about who they are, their bodies, and their sexual health, and their body, like just their regular body health and mental health. I think in Iowa, it was either a school or the entire state, but you're prohibited from instructing on any gender identity or sex education. It's just that's it.
Just
That's
gone.
crazy.
They're not going to know
I
anything.
grew up in a country where we didn't have any sexual education, and I think that's tough because we had to like self-educate ourselves.
Yeah. No, like self-education, especially among like kids.
Mhm.
You know, like self-educate, like they're supposed to go to school, even if it is like a topic that by some might be deemed like inappropriate or
Corrupts their innocence.
yeah, or corrupts their innocence. Every topic being covered is like it's very important. They'll see it at some point. They'll have to know it
Yeah.
at some point, and to just like try and like deprive them of that of the learning of it, and have to like force them to learn on their own. Like I grew up, I went to a Catholic school. We weren't allowed to have a sexual education class. I didn't know anything. I wasn't.
Same as me.
Yeah, I didn't know anything. I wasn't told anything, and growing up and like getting past that was very difficult. Because like you have to learn everything yourself. A lot of things that you do learn yourself, you don't know if they're right or not. You know, you don't have a trusted adult to tell you if like these are the right things, if these are the things that you should be doing, or these are the things that you shouldn't be doing. You just don't have that help. And it's very hard on people.
Yeah.
I think it's especially tough because it's kind of in this idea of teaching like abstinence only, and like you can wait for that until you get married. You don't
Yeah.
have to know about that now,
Yeah.
but you know, humans being humans, they don't wait, and so you just see a rise in like teen pregnancy, STDs, just because of there's no contraceptive education, and people are just getting in trouble. They're getting into domestic abuse relationships because they don't know what healthy relationships look like because they're never taught this baseline of just like this is what we are, this is how we grow up, and this is just what it is. They just have to figure it out themselves, and usually that kind of leaves a lot of people to look to their familial relationships, and not a lot of familial relationships are positive.
Yeah.
So it just kind of creates this continuation of all of these unhealthy relationships just because it's born from not knowing what to do.
Especially there's this new censorship that
It's
they have
just
come on.
crazy because I don't think we should be erasing these like such important like, educational
Yeah.
like what's it called, like classes or like just topics in general, especially with like you mentioned history. Like why would you want to erase that? And then like same with sexual education. Like why would you want to teach these like kids or like even like teenagers or adults like these things? You know, like silencing like or being quiet or just like kind of shying away from it. Like you said, Tyler, it's gonna like just honestly kind of put us in like a weird position, you know?
I think it'll also just create this place where we know we're not allowed to talk about certain
Yeah.
things. We're not going to have the freedom to talk about what we want because there's going to be this idea, oh, we can't talk about this.
Yeah.
Like walking on eggshells.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And back to history, actually, I remember hearing in one of my classes that a advanced placement class that's for African American studies was banned because it was quote unquote spreading hate, and that that hate was just because a lot of white children felt guilty about the past history that happened here in America with African Americans, and I think that's just wild. Just because
Yeah.
the idea that, oh, we can't tell these kids because it's uncomfortable,
That
to
Yeah.
they can't be
No.
uncomfortable about
you
Yeah.
these
have to be
things.
uncomfortable with history. Like
It's
you're
what
gonna learn
happened.
either.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I think one of the craziest things is that the U.S. is trying to like do this as like, oh, we want to like help protect, like our citizens. Like this isn't a bad thing we're doing.
Mhm.
And like, but the thing is like, other countries who have done way worse things or on par. Like with the Nazis in Germany. Germany, they force children to learn about that. They force them to learn about that, and nearly like everyone is like, yeah, we're against this. We've realized what we did. Or like Japan during World War II when they did like terrible things like the raping of Nanking or stuff like that. They have to learn about that, and they acknowledge it. And for the US to just be like, oh, we just don't want to. And we're just gonna like get rid of this and we're gonna censor that you can't talk about that. For them to just like get rid of like talking about things such as slavery, things such as like oppression, during the early 1900s, things like that. And to just be like, oh, well, we don't feel comfortable talking about that. And just like getting rid of that history of it. It's doesn't make sense. It just seems like they want to control the history of it.
I mean, I think it's if you control education and you control the ideas of people, you control people.
yeah.
Really,
Yeah.
is what it is. You control education, you can control people, and I think that that's where America is moving.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it relates a lot to Iran.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Which is our next
America
segment.
is totally moving towards that.
Yeah. So, well, yeah. Do you guys have anything else you want to say? All right. Okay. But moving on to our next segment with Iran and comparing it to the U.S. We're gonna start with Ali, since you have a first-hand viewer of it.
So in Iran, I think censorship divides into two different timelines. One before the 1979 revolution and one after that. Before the revolution, there wasn't that much of censorship. People could read whatever they wanted, they could write whatever they wanted, they had freedom of speech. But after the revolution happened, everything just changed so quickly. They had to obey specific rules. Women had to wear scarves, they couldn't show their skin that much. There was a huge filtering on TV, books, films, everything. Imagine you're watching a movie and all the sexual scenes are erased, like in a terrible way. You can notice that. That's crazy. And even they censored the women's skin, they colored them in
Yeah.
black.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. I think America kind of moving towards that.
Yeah, I think America, like, even though like these changes are like really small in America compared to like
Yeah.
Iran where they have like very large things, it's just like the change in general. And I think it's a good comparison because of how Iran was before the
Yeah.
revolution.
It
Because
was like, bam,
yeah,
everything just changed.
yeah, because under before the revolution under Shah, um, it was like Iran was like having this giant influx of like new modernization, westernization. They focused on like women's education. There was like freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and there was just all these things where like that people could just like do whatever they wanted almost. Um, and then like when the revolution happened and there's that switch of power, um,
Everything just gone.
yeah, it was crazy because like everything became censored. Like education was censored, media was censored, and in the U.S. we're kind of like at like the forefront of that. We're starting to see that
Yeah.
happening. We're like, education is being targeted.
No, I mean, even if you're in Iran right now, you can't even do any kind of journalism or news about it. I read on a website called Myth versus Fact: Censorship for Iran. Nika Mobed actually highlighted like 91 journalists in Iran were
That's
in
true.
prison. Yeah,
Yeah.
and for speaking out against either like Islam or um, women's rights,
Yeah.
anything about the
You can
Palestine.
say anything
You can't.
negative against
Yeah,
the government or the religion.
and all of these people, they were like imprisoned for 14 plus years. They were fined millions of dollars, 50 plus lashings,
Yeah, that's
and
crazy.
even in prison, the torture gets worse.
Like,
So it's very controlling. It's very much you really you can't say anything or this is what's going to happen.
Yeah. I think with the history of it, I think the craziest part of everything that's happened to Iran is almost directly due because of Western powers. Um, like when Shah, the leader before the revolution, first took power, there was this there was this classified file in the UK that got leaked or taken out or something, and it was reported on that the UK and the US had placed Shah there, overthrowing a
Yeah.
democratically elected leader named Mohammed some I
Muhammad
forget.
Reza Shah.
Yeah, and they replaced him with Shah as like a puppet state. Like they were trying to control him so they
Yeah.
could get the
They wanted
oil.
to use him.
Yeah, and while that did like that was good for a while, it brought in like the modernization, westernization, like I said. When Shah kind of started to fight back against them and being like having a voice, instantly like the U.S. made this plan to get rid of Shah and replace him with the next leader after the revolution, Khomeini.
Khomeini. That's right.
Um, and just the role that they play in that, and the role that they played in the downfall of Iran, the censorship that happened. I don't think it can be ignored, especially what's happening now.
No, and I mean with they were promised so many things with
yeah.
Yeah, they promised free
yeah.
lands, free water,
Yeah,
free electricity.
literally just to get people to like
Yeah.
him.
It's kind of like similar to like Trump during like the
Yeah,
elections. Like he made all these false promises,
yeah,
and like
like
especially with the prices, like groceries. He's like, yeah, they're all gonna go down. Like he
yeah,
also like focused on the prices of eggs too. Like talking
yeah,
about how
which
they're gonna go
are
down to
yeah, which
like look at it now.
yeah, I think they're very like large differences. I think the it's a lot more dramatic what happened in
Yeah.
Iran, but I don't think it can be ignored the similarities
Yeah,
of
for sure.
taking power through false promises that aren't being met.
Yes.
But it's crazy. Um, yeah.
So I would say if the recent pattern of censorship continues in the US, America could head towards that path too.
Yeah, yeah. Let's talk like our next segment of talking about where the U.S. is heading.
Yeah.
Um, the U.S. like this isn't just like the few things that Trump got rid of, and people are concerned about these things, but these are like ongoing things.
Yeah.
Censorship is still happening. Like literally, maybe like 5 days ago, Trump gave out this whole speech of how he's going to be cutting funding to like public broadcasting.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
because of the whole Doge.
And he
Which is
also
crazy.
recently, it was like, I think he's cutting off like Harvard funds, like financial
Yeah,
funds. And he sent like a whole letter, or like their
yeah,
administration sent a whole letter, and like with that whole letter, Harvard actually like annotated it and like made corrections and then sent it back, which is
no,
crazy.
because I think he sent the letter because they weren't conforming to what Trump wanted.
Yeah,
No.
it was Trump wanted to take control of what they were going to be teaching at Harvard,
Yes.
Yeah,
and Harvard was like, no. So he's like, okay, we'll just not give you any money then.
yeah, which is crazy. It's like the same thing with public broadcasting. Like I saw an article. It was weird because like I found this article and they were saying like Trump was saying so many like different things. At first he was saying that like oh these public broadcasts they're outdated and the funding to them just doesn't make sense anymore. But then on the other hand he went on like his kind of usual rant of how they're radical and how they don't correctly show current events. Like kind of because they are known to like paint a more of a bad image on Trump and what he does. And all I can see out of that is that he just wants to get rid of this bad image he has. Like public broadcasting serves as like a very large part of how people get information. Like sure, people have like social media now, independent sources, people like that, but this public broadcasting has existed for so long and was even like has been part of mine, and I'm sure maybe not Ali, since she wasn't in the U.S., but Tyler and Drina, your guys' childhood, like stuff like Elmo or stuff like was on this
Yeah.
public broadcasting, and to just want to cut funding to that, it's crazy.
I mean, I think it especially speaks to the freedom of press, is what this is, and the freedom of publishing whatever media you want to publish, whether it be for the good or for the bad, and that's all subjective. But we all have the ability to do it, or now had the ability to do
Yeah.
it. And we were allowed to voice our opinions, and we were allowed to complain as much as we wanted to about what's going on. And it's kind of worrying to think that, especially now that Trump has all of these people in as advisors who run a lot of media and who are in charge of a lot of the websites that we use, it'd be really easy to start censoring any of the information that is put out there or is put away and just control people that way.
Yeah.
I mean, I think a majority of Americans live on social media.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think one of the craziest things is the kind of legal things that are happening too along with it. Like with the public broadcasting, it has already been set up that like they'll receive their funding for, I think it's just this year. Like they'll receive funding for this year, and judges have told Trump like, "Hey, we're siding with the public broadcasters. You have to give them your funding," and he just says no, and he just like refuses to give it, and it's just like how much like power can he have, and like how much can he take away from people, and how much can he censor, and it's crazy like this shift in from a democracy that we're supposed to be living in to where all eyes are on this central person that no matter what side you're on, whether you agree with him or not, I feel like it's impossible to ignore the control that he is taking. Whether you like it or not, I don't think you can ignore it.
I mean, it's literally unconstitutional,
Yeah.
and he's getting away with it.
Yeah.
And I think it's because he's just doing so much stuff in every department.
Yeah.
Like
It's just,
nobody
like,
can focus
just
on
flooding.
one thing.
Yeah.
Just what like what 100 executive orders like day one.
It's
Like,
insane.
it is crazy.
Like watching that happen and just like how it's just sliding is
Yeah.
crazy.
And like also like he was signing things where it
He
seemed
didn't even know what
yeah,
they
he didn't
were
it didn't
about.
even seem like they're about
He wasn't even reading
like-
it.
like-
He was just signing away.
yeah, someone was like giving it to him and he was like, "Oh, what's this one about?" And like as they're explaining, he doesn't even let them finish explaining and he just signs it. And then just passes it off and he goes on to the next one. Like it's crazy.
I mean, it's really just like a smoke bomb. It's like, all right, everybody, look
Yeah,
away.
that
I'm gonna
seems
do
like what
whatever
it
I
is.
want.
That seems like what it is. It seems like just like a flooding of a ton of information so people are distracted so he can do like the things that he wants to do.
It induces so much helplessness.
Yeah, it does.
It's like every day there's something new. Like oh my god.
Yeah, and it just seems like we're on like just a downhill path
Yeah.
for the next 4 years, which we don't even know where we're going to be heading.
No, and it feels like there's nothing we can do.
Yeah, especially with like Republicans control the House and
Like
they
half.
can yeah, no, they control over half, so they have the majority say, or they control the Senate and they have like say in that too. And I think even with Supreme Court judges, they control the amount of Republican Supreme Court judges on there, and it's just this immense amount of one-sided control that we're starting to see, where they seem like they're just doing whatever they want.
And it's crazy because it was built in a way that wasn't supposed to
Yes.
happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was built in a way that
It was supposed to be
each
even.
side was
Yeah.
going to be heard and that there was going to be a discussion, but that doesn't happen anymore. There's no discussion.
It feels
Yeah.
like there's no discussion period. Like
No.
it just feels
Yeah.
like it's just set on one thing. Like as soon as something's presented,
It's
boom, that's
crazy.
gonna happen.
Yeah.
If that makes
So
sense.
like in the I've seen like so many times now in the House or like a bill will pass because the Republicans just have a majority of the vote and they just choose to pass it. And it's crazy because like it was set up for like like as for these to be elected officials, which they were, like they were elected fairly, but the system of electing has created a split in who has the most power, and through that, it's just like I said, it just seems like it's going to be a downhill thing.
It's just it's so important to have freedom of speech, and that is I think what upholds our democracy, and the fact that it is being threatened in so many ways it's a sign. I'm speculating here, but it's a
Yeah, yeah,
sign.
definitely speculating, but I don't. But speculating, I feel like in a good conscience, like like you have a pretty good idea with things how they have been within these past what a bit over 100 days under
It's
Trump.
like crazy because like I think collectively we all just notice it happening. Like
Yeah,
I feel like we were like kind of just like wow, like this could actually happen. And then like as soon as like for example, the Department of Education, him wanting to dismantling that, and for him to say like he's not taking away opportunities is crazy because you
yeah,
quite literally are. You're just taking away these funds for like low income students who can't afford to go to school, and taking away education that like people want. Like that's crazy to
yeah.
me.
Just the censoring and the blocking and the
It's
just
trying to
everything.
normalize the censorship.
Yeah, almost like
Yeah.
it's because like if people like look at it like that are on the right side, they look at it and they just see like, oh well, this isn't like that big of a thing, it's not all books, it's not, but it's like enough to where and I'm
It's
sure that like
causing a lot of concern to like
yeah.
everyone.
And I'm sure that like in the past with like I just haven't seen I'm sure that other presidents have banned things. Like I don't think there's any say I'm sure that they have. I'm sure that there's always been something that they deem as wrong, but with the how incredibly large this has been and how it's almost like at first in Trump's presidency, it was like a day by day, so many things were happening. You would look on the news, now this happened, now this is happening. And now it's become like a weekly thing. But still, it's so much that it just worries you.
It's debilitating.
Yeah,
I feel like I wake up every day. I'm like, well, there's nothing I can do about this. I can either act
Yeah.
like it's not happening and act like
And I think
I don't know about it and hope nothing happens, or I know about it. I'm just like, and there's nothing I can do.
You
I
can't
think that's
ignore
the
it.
point.
It's better to be aware of like what's happening for sure instead of ignoring it because
Yeah.
this is your life. Like
Yeah.
you can't just let this
Yeah.
slide and let that
But
happen.
I think the point of all of it is literally to overwhelm the people because like you hit a stage where like it's so much and you just like I can't look at it anymore.
Yeah.
And it's just and I think that's literally the point of it to get to overwhelm people and to continue with like censorship and everything.
It's like controlling with fear, and then it's much easier to control an undereducated population
Yeah.
of people.
That's how it's been done in every which is crazy because like in the US we have talked about how bad these other countries are. Like Russia, North Korea, China. That's been well that one's starting to like fade more modern, but like Russia and North Korea especially, we have always talked in the US about how much they are controlled, how they are censored, how much is taken away from them, and for us to just or for our government to just turn around and ignore all of that and to paint it as that they're doing good. It's crazy.
I mean, they're literally changing history and how it's being taught. I think in one state, I think it was Oklahoma. I may be wrong about this, but they're teaching, or it could have been Florida. They're teaching that Trump had won the last election against Biden and that it was rigged, and they're teaching
Oh,
that
I've heard
in
about
schools.
that. Yeah.
And it's just like I feel like I'm not living in a reality.
Yeah, it's so weird because like you're saying, you just want to shut off from it. You
There was like a speaking on that. During the elections, Kamala Harris was wearing these earrings, and people were like so convinced they were microphones. But
it's
they were just regular earrings.
yeah, it's
There's a similar pair that looked like microphones, but they were clearly not the same pair. And like people, like Republicans were so stuck up on this idea that like yeah, like they're telling her what to say, like what to do, like look at her earrings, like just stuck up on that idea, which is insane.
crazy. No, it's just like the amount of like I don't like it. I don't want to be mean about it, but like you almost have to the amount of like delusion in it. It's crazy.
Like along with the tariffs as well, I saw this video. Like this boy was explaining to his mom about the tariffs, and then like his mom immediately was like, "Oh my God, Biden did this! Like I can't believe he did that!"
Oh my,
Like,
wait, no, I've
do
seen
you
that.
know what I'm
Yeah,
talking
no,
about?
I do.
Yeah, and she was like, Donald Trump is doing so good. Like
It's
he's
crazy
like
because like
bringing it like to like
it,
attention to this. I was like, I don't think
no,
she's
it's
that's
crazy,
correct
and
because
I just don't understand like the way that people are thinking about all these things. Like this stuff like you're talking with tariffs and everything, or like our main topic here of censorship. People make it out to where it's such like, oh, this is such like a good thing that's gonna
yeah,
happen, and I can't understand it. Like I don't understand why having less
it's good.
is good.
I mean, I think it's built on this idea that you're protecting who you think you're going to be when you get there. The idea that that I'm going to be a millionaire next year, so I want to pay the least amount of taxes when I'm a millionaire. So I'm going to make it so rich people don't have to pay taxes. So when I'm a rich person, I don't have to pay taxes. But they don't know that that very thing is what's keeping them from not being a
Yeah,
millionaire.
it's crazy the amount of things like in the direction that the U.S. is going with all of this, and it just and it's scary because like we're worried about all of this. Like I said, we still have like another 4 years.
Yes.
Who knows what else is gonna happen? Who knows what else like major thing is going to be taken away or changed, or it's just who knows what kind of like legal battles that like between more democratic states or more democratic officials are going to get into with Trump or the Republican Party, and it's crazy. I think some of the craziest things I've seen with the Republican Party is their silence on things. Like I will see multiple times. I think during during like Senate hearings. I think when they're discussing things, I could be wrong. But like they will be split on the Democratic side and the Republican side, and the Democrats will say something. Like I think the most recent thing I saw was because of Trump's ideas of deportations and everything. Um, they brought that up, and one of the stories that has been going around is children with cancer being deported. I don't know if it's true, but and I don't have like a source about it, but the intimidating or the scary part to me wasn't like the fact of it, because like I said, I don't know if it's true or not. The scary part to me was when the Democrats brought it up to the Republican side, they said nothing. They said nothing trying to defend themselves, being like, oh, that's not actually true. They said nothing on, oh, it's actually supposed to be this way. They, like, nothing. They were just silent. And it's just like, you see that, and it's just like, you see that matched with the things they're taking away with censorship, and you see that with all the, all the things being like forced upon people and everything like that. And it's just, is worrying to where we can be heading.
I mean, just as at our young age, what is our future going to look like?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I'll be in like getting to my mid 20s by the time Trump is out of office. And still like Trump is his whole thing about debating on a third term, which is
Oh,
crazy.
oh,
Um
I would imagine
and
that.
it's it's wild. I don't know. The US is just heading in this direction that I just don't see anything. I only see us literally moving backwards through all the progress that we've
We
made.
quite literally are.
I think the only thing we can do is just be aware of all this, but also exercise the freedom of speech that we
Yeah.
have now.
Yeah.
Let people know when we can who care
Yeah.
about what
Yeah.
is
And I'm
happening.
happy that I have seen that so much.
Me too.
I think that there needs to be more political education
For sure.
everybody.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I think it does. I feel like everyone feels like it's all in their face all the time, and that's why they
But, like,
don't want it. But
That's
Yeah.
the point.
And I feel like
You need to learn this. You need to like see what's going on.
I feel like
you can't just ignore that because once you ignore it, it's too late to fix it.
yeah, and I feel like there are a lot of people like that that ignore it, or they just don't think that politics have that large of a interaction in their life.
Yeah.
Like people, like I remember in high school, we had to take a U.S. government
yeah,
class,
government.
Yeah.
and and I remember kids literally just didn't care because they saw it as like, oh, I'm not going into politics, I'm not going into government and everything. This isn't going to interact with me on a day to day life. But like people just don't seem to see like how everything that happens is literally within the voice of the people, and the voice that they can use to change things. And instead they just don't, because they don't think they have a say in it, or it's not part of what they do.
We've become passive members of society.
Yeah.
And then when something terrible happens, we're like, I don't know what's happening or why that's happening.
Yeah.
And that's why it is important to be active and to know. So then you know what's happening and you can advocate your voice in the way that you see fit. And I mean, thank God we're in California, and we'll be the last one to probably be hit with any kind of censorship. But there's also be a huge disparity between then educated people within America. Different states are going to have different levels of education, different uh, mass believed ideas, instead of just kind of everyone having some kind of like baseline
Yeah.
to just communicate with each
Yeah.
other. It's just gonna the gap between people is just gonna be more and more and more. And I think just again being active and being knowing, but using your freedom of speech, but not silencing other people's is also a big thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though I may not agree with somebody else, but
Still gonna listen to them.
they still should be able to say what they want to say, and we should
Yeah.
be able to have a conversation about it, not
Yeah.
just yell at each other about it.
I've
I know,
been seeing that a lot. I'm like,
Which is like that's what I always thought that the U.S. was gonna be. Like I always thought that the U.S. was just always gonna be this place where everybody talked to each other and everybody could congregate and speak on things that they saw in different lights, but they could still say like different things and like get along and shake hands at the end of it and leave. But then like as time has gone on, especially when Trump entered into the first presidency and he brought like his whole like different like his rudeness and his craziness into things, and like people at first saw him, they're like, hey, this guy's like me, he's a normal person, like he doesn't talk all like fancy and nice on the screen, and he's more just like me, and like people liked him because of that. And I think from that point on, people just started like arguing more without any like civilized manner about it. Like people just don't get along.
It's not an exchange of ideas anymore.
Yeah.
It's just I'm gonna beat my idea into you.
Yeah, literally. And it's. But yeah, you guys have anything else you wanna add?
We should
Just
all be active in
be
our
active, use your
communities,
voice.
be active, and be positive,
yeah.
Yeah.
Educate others, to be honest.
and be as
Educate
educated
others.
as we can be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
And kill people with kindness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Literally, if someone's just if you
If someone's being rude to you, just be
if you
nice.
debate someone and they're trying to drill their ideas into you, and just don't give in to it. As much as I have wanted to before, just don't give in to it. Don't start a yelling match.
Yeah.
Thank you for your opinion. Have a
Wow.
nice day.
Wow, that's really nice of you to think like that, even though it can be the worst thing. Wow. So I don't actually agree with that, but that's a really good opinion. But yeah, just
Just agree to disagree with
agree to
people.
disagree.
Just move on.
Just move on. Don't. Wait, it's too much. Gives me a headache. So yeah, anything else you guys want to add other than
I
that?
think that's it.
Okay. That's the end of our podcast. Thank you for joining us, the ATLA, and goodbye.
If you are interested in a career in sports broadcasting, whether you're commentating a live game
or hosting your own TV show,
For more information, contact Greg Poff. That's me at solano.edu.
we hope to see you here next semester. And remember,
It's more than just sports, it's an education.